Hey there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monica Reyes, and today we're going to talk about how to stop being a people pleaser. Make sure to watch the whole video because not only am I going to tell you why you might be a people pleaser, how this might be expressing itself in your life, but I'm also going to share with you my 5-step process to transforming this distorted trait into something that you can actually use. All right, stay tuned. All right, so a people pleaser is a characteristic, it's a personality trait. It's actually probably become more of an identity that was formed likely during childhood when between the ages of 0 to 7. And what happens with these traits, what happens is we are basically during that time, we are adapting to our environment. And the way that it might be expressing in your life now is, like, by definition, the people pleaser is doing anything, changing, adapting yourself to the external world so that you can be approved, you can be liked, you can be loved. I've actually also seen this formed for security and certainty, and we'll get a little bit deeper into that in just a moment. So the way it was formed, you might, if you were experiencing people pleasing, then in your childhood history, you might have also had maybe parents that were unpredictable, maybe they were always fighting, and so you wanted to keep harmony in the household. Maybe you had a parent that was, this person raged or was an alcoholic. Again, trying to please, you wanted to keep harmony in the household. So as a child, in order to deal with that external conflict, you might have adapted yourself and became someone else to, like, keep things, hold things together, keep the harmony in the household. And the way that we program our brain, the way we create those neural pathways in our brain to become who we are, is you do it repetitively. And so you probably showed up this way over and over and over and over and over again as a child, and ultimately became who you are. And then you might have gotten so much out of it, it might have served you, where you might have felt connection, you might have felt love, to the point where it became an identity. And now the people pleaser is now hijacking you as an adult. You're like wanting to show up as the adult self that you are, if you were an adult watching this, and you still have this childhood identity, this childhood part of you that shows up and hijacks your thinking, your behaviors, your actions, and you're like, oh my God, why did I say yes to that? I didn't even want to do that, and now I'm stuck in a bind. And then if you're a people pleaser, you most likely don't like conflict. You don't want to have to go back to the person and tell them, I changed my mind, I don't want to do this. So, so it puts you in a pickle, and then you end up really, a lot of self-hatred occurs because you're not standing up for yourself. You're no longer an advocate. You're putting everyone ahead of you. The people pleaser self-sacrifices a lot. The people pleaser feels very disconnected. Sometimes doesn't have a lot of self-esteem because you were constantly putting people ahead of you. The integrity of the relationship to self starts to disintegrate. Nobody's standing up for you, and so you just continue to it's a vicious cycle. You're going to continue to be even more of a people pleaser because you're trying to satisfy a need that only you can give to yourself, and that is basically the antidote, which I'm going to get into, but ultimately that's what we want to do. All right, so how do we shift it? How do we move past people pleasing? So my 5-step process, which we can use for most of these, for these particular identities, and I'm starting to do videos on these where I'm going to be releasing videos on how to process, how to work through these different identities. So examples of these kind of identities that form are like the people pleaser, the perfectionist. Maybe you've got the good girl, and the good girl looks kind of like, you're taming a wild beast inside of you. Maybe you've got a rebel inside of you that shows up out of nowhere, and doesn't like authority and doesn't like to be controlled. Sometimes you might have a bitch or a bad boy or a bad girl, the caretaker, the clown. They're basically these archetypes that live in our psyche, and they are these younger parts of you. And so that's probably the most important thing that you want to remember, is that this is a young part of you. Because it was formed in childhood, this actually might be a little girl, little boy. I've done tons of different hypnotic techniques where we have actually met the little girl or the little boy inside, and they're like between ages 0 to 7. I've also seen some of these in teenage years, but those tend to be more the rebel, because that tends to be more of the rebellious type where you're trying to find your independence. So So it's really important to remember this, because as you're working through this process, the quality that you want to be holding is not judgment, it's acceptance and love, unconditional love. Because this little girl or little boy inside, the whole reason they're doing this is because they want to be approved, they want to be accepted, they want to be loved, they don't want to be judged, they don't want to be criticized. They don't want to disappoint anybody, they don't want conflict, and so they're scared to say no, they're scared to disappoint, and really all they want is love from you. And this is an opportunity for you to actually reparent yourself, for you to be the mother or the father, this stable mother or father that they've always wanted, that they didn't have. And listen, there is no judgment here, there are no perfect parents. And this is, parenting is another level of spiritual development. I'm a parent of 2, so I can tell you it's okay. And it's actually all been serving you. So also remembering that it's all happening for you, and it's actually been preparing you for whatever your mission is, or whatever you're here and how you're going to serve humanity. So coming in with unconditional love, with a lot of compassion, is going to be step number 1. Basically, like it's the way that we want to approach all of this. No judgment. And if you start to feel a part of you that's a judge, that's judging, that's another identity that we will talk about in another video. The judge, the critic, because that part of you also needs something. It's also getting something, which is why it's here. And so you get to work through all of these. And the official step number 1 of the 5-step process is going to be to recognize it, to be aware of it. It's awareness. And it's basically, all right, I have a people pleaser inside of me. And remembering that you are not a people pleaser. Like, how do I stop becoming a people pleaser? Why am I a people pleaser? When you say that, you have completely identified yourself with people pleasing, and that's not who you are. You are boundless consciousness, you are pure awareness, you are undefinable. This little people pleaser that you've got, it's just a small part of you. And so sometimes you do, sometimes you have little people pleasing moments. And and the more that you can see it separate from yourself, that's really going to be a huge, you want to create space between you and the people pleaser. So in the recognition of it, this step number 1 is going to be ask questions, get to know it. Like, okay, so what do you look like, people pleaser? What age did you develop? When do you pop up in my life? When do you come in? Are there specific behavioral markers or specific people or situations that trigger my people pleaser, so that you can start to become intentional? So if you already know later on that you're about to come into a situation that you've discovered that triggers your people pleaser to come out, then you can already tap into that part of you, the little girl, little boy inside, and give them what they need, so that when you come in, you're not the people pleaser isn't making all the decisions. Because you don't want a little boy or little girl making all the decisions. You want adult you, confident you, to make the decisions. So but you need to tend to this little part of you. Otherwise they create havoc, and they actually hijack all of our psychological functions. So they hijack your thinking and your imagination and your intuition, your desire, your impulse, what you feel, your sensation, how you show up in the world. And you want to be able to the adult you to be making these decisions and to be leading into, to be parenting. You don't want the people pleaser to do that. So it's really, really important to get to know this part of you. So other questions I would ask are, if this was a character, what would you look like? What kind of beliefs and worldviews does this part of you have? So those types of, but really getting to know. And as you do that, you're further disidentifying from you and this people pleaser, so that you can really fully create space, so that you can show up as the witness and you can witness the people pleaser. So then next time when something happens, you start to feel the people pleaser, because you've already identified the feelings that you feel, where in your body they are. You've identified like the behavioral, it hijacks all of it. So you start, oh, okay, I'm feeling the people pleaser here. And then you get to talk to the people pleaser and create a relationship with it. So step number 2 is acceptance. So after we move into getting to know it and identifying and disidentifying, we want to move into accepting it, accepting that the people pleaser is here, accepting that everything that happened that led you to this moment happened, and letting go to any resistance and letting go of any judgment or any like, man, I should have done better. I made a mistake when I said yes to that. Like, all right, this is where we are. All right, so, and if that happened, then maybe that was part of the divine orchestration and that was exactly what was supposed to happen. So really accepting and letting go, because when you can do that and fully surrender and accept that this part of you is here, that's when we can transform. But if you have resistance, that's a whole other layer we're gonna have to deal with. So assuming you've accepted that the people pleaser is here, we're gonna move on to step number 3. And step number 3 is called coordination. And coordination is really simply partnership. You want to create a partnership with you in this part. So there is a myth out there that says, let's kill them off. Let's eradicate the ego. Let's eliminate these parts of us. Let's kill off our limiting beliefs. I invite you to see this differently, because you do not want to kill a part of you off, especially a little boy or little girl inside of you. So I invite you to consider to see this differently. And I'm going to tell you from a lot of experience of working with a lot of people, including myself, that when you create a partnership with this part of you, it is way more effective, because really all this part of you needs, and the more that you want to try to kill it off, it's not going to work. It's just going to come out with a fiery, and another part of you might come in to protect, and they work in pairs. So I would, step number 3 is create a partnership. All right, so what do you need? Why are you here? Every time I people please, what am I getting? I'm serving me in some way. Am I getting love? Am I getting connection? Am I getting safety? Am I getting security? What am I getting? Am I getting significance? What am I gaining from this, from being a people pleaser? And once you've identified the reason why it's here, then what you will be able to do is you will be able to provide that part of you with exactly what you need. And what that will do now will be to fulfill the need that you've been so desperately trying to get from the external world that you have not been able to get. And you've been doing it in such a distorted way that's been completely, affecting your life. Now you can give it to you in a healthy, balanced way. Okay, so if it's self-love I need now, how can I create time for myself on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, where I'm providing myself self-love and self-care? If it's certainty and security, okay, so maybe I just need to tell that part of me that everything is going to be okay, that I promise you that I'm not going to leave you, that I'm here. Maybe it's a redefining of, maybe it's conflict or a fear of disappointment. Maybe it's afraid of judgment, and so where am I judging myself? And maybe you might have to end up working through other types of identities, like the judge, or maybe there's a disappointing part of you, or there's a worrier in there. And so, you get to use this process, but this one you specifically use with the people pleaser. Although you technically could use this, you're going to use the same process with all of them, but I'm walking you through the people pleaser. So finding out what all of that is, providing that to you in a healthy, balanced way on a practical level. I would invite you also to check in with your people pleaser, with this part of you, every morning, because you probably have not heard from you from a while. So check in with this part of you every morning, add it to your meditation practice. And then when you figure out how this is showing up in like a real way of like being intentional, carve out some time before the sales call, carve out some time before you have to get into conflict or communication, and you got to say no to someone. And some other tips that you can do here are stop breaking promises to yourself. That's going to be an important one, because that is also breaking up the integrity of the relationship between you and yourself. So stop breaking promises to yourself. So if you say that you're going to do something, do it. If you have to reproject. That's going to be super important. And that's also going to affect trusting yourself, which then will ultimately affect you trusting others. And then the last tip that I've got for you before we move on to number 4 is to take a breath before you say yes. So people pleasers tend to say yes before thinking, because this is an unconscious program. So you've got a choice point there. Create a choice point where somebody asks you to do something, and before you say yes, you know what? Let me think about that. Do you mind if I take a few minutes to think about it? Do you mind if I take a day to think about that? I've never met anybody that's going to say no. So allow yourself to take a breath and ask for time so that you can sit and think about, why am I saying yes? If I say yes to this, am I doing it because it's going to serve me? Am I doing it because I'm feeling obligated? Who is saying yes? Is it the adult version saying yes, or is it people pleaser saying yes? So really, asking that get question was really going to be powerful to help you make empowered decisions and allow you to say no. And I'm going to tell you that after you say no for the first time, because I'm a recovered people pleaser, after saying no for the first time and then getting a response, I was like, hell yeah, this is easy. Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't say no all this time. It's really, you can pretty much communicate anything with compassion. All right, so step number 4 is integration. And integration, in essence, is let's figure out, like, we don't want to be like, I'm people pleaser, I'm adult. I'm people pleaser, I'm adult, right? That's inner conflict inside. What we want to do is we want to live integrated with wholeness. And the way to do that is to then, after you've gone through these steps, the next step is going to be, what quality is underneath the people pleaser? Because there is a quality here that is actually really useful that you can use, that's wanting to emerge, but has been distorted because of the need, the void, the hole that you have that you've been trying to fill with the external world. But now you're fulfilling that, you're giving yourself the love, you're giving yourself the connection, the security, the safety, whatever it is that you need. And so now there's a quality that's wanting to emerge. And usually the people pleaser is very nurturing. It's very nurturing. It's thinking about others. It's selfless. There's a humility, there's a generosity, which is a beautiful relationship quality. It's really only becomes a challenge when it becomes distorted, right? When you're trying to get something, the need fulfilled from the relationship, in a distorted way. So figuring out also what's that quality, and then so what does it feel like for me in coming in from integration? Asking, this is a journaling question for you, and all of these questions are journaling questions. I'm sorry I didn't mention that before. Once I figured out the qualities, if it is nurturing, what would nurturing be like for me to nurture and care for others and care for myself? So having that, it's the both, right? The both and. Being able to do both. What would it be like to have both of those? And how would I show up? How do I think? How do I breathe? How do I act? How do I make decisions? That integrative version, and start to explore that and take action as an integrative self. And then step 5 is going to be synthesis. And that's ultimately where there is no more separation, where this part of you has officially reconnected, and then all that's left is the quality. So all that's left, because you're giving yourself the need, all that's left now is you being your nurturing self to both external and internal. And that is the healthy, balanced way. All right. So that is it. That's my 5-step process. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks for tuning in all the way to the end. I know this was a longer video, but this was a process working you through it. So, you can hit pause, you can go back and re-listen to it and work through this, because this is the way to do it. This is the way I've seen it. This is the way I was trained to do it. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you got value out of it. If you like this video, please like it. Please send me a comment if you got any value of it. What was your favorite part? And share it and subscribe. All right, see you next time.